I now reconvene the regular council meeting for Monday, February 26, 2024. Before we move on, I'd like to welcome the members of the public who are with us in the gallery tonight. Welcome. We would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the homeland of the Ktunaxa people before we get underway. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting of Monday, February 26, 2024? Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray, all in favor, opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the following minutes? Regular council meeting of Monday, February 5th, 2024. Committee of the whole meeting of Monday, February 12th, 2024. Mover, please. Councillor Graham, Councillor Ray, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We have a delegation with us tonight. We have one delegation. We have Staff Sergeant Barry Graham and Amanda Peters are here from the Cranbrook RCMP to provide the RCMP annual update and receive council priorities in 2024. Welcome, Barry and Amanda. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having us here today. I look forward to sharing our annual update with you and hearing from Council what your priorities are with respect to policing and community safety to help share our direction going forward. There we go. Looking at our organizational structure, the detachment has 26 municipally funded positions, which are the blue boxes. These positions provide policing support to the municipality of Cranbrook. There are 4 unfunded positions which help us maintain operations when municipally funded members go off on medical leave or are injured. These unfunded positions are in the gray boxes. The green boxes are provincially funded positions. The municipality does not pay for these. This is separate from the 90-10 cost split with the RCMP. The surrounding rural areas of Cranbrook are considered provincial RCMP jurisdiction. Cranbrook RCMP provides policing to these rural areas through these provincial RCMP positions. The municipality is not responsible to pay for costs associated with policing in the provincial jurisdiction. We often refer to frontline policing as core policing because these positions respond to emergency 911 calls and non-emergency calls. They are critical in ensuring quick call response times and public safety. They are the face of the detachment, the uniform members that turn up when a call for service is placed. Frontline members come from a variety of backgrounds and many possess specialized experience or knowledge, such as investigative techniques. Each frontline policing member carries an active workload of ongoing investigations. They're responsible not only for incoming calls for service, but also for investigating a wide array of criminal offenses. In addition to their daily workload, frontline members often support the general investigation section in the initial investigation of complex files and attend community events and conduct proactive patrols. Frontline policing accounts for 17 out of our 26 funded positions, including the sergeant. These 17 positions respond to calls for service for the entire community of over 20,000 people. Each frontline member responds to an average of 500 calls for service annually and carries an average of 10 active investigations at any given time. At times, we can receive over 30 calls for service per 12-hour shift. We do our best to attend calls as quickly as possible, but do need to prioritize our attendance for service where there is an immediate threat to persons or property. Operation support includes all other sections that are not frontline policing. ERU, or the Enhanced Response Unit, consists of GIS, a General Investigation Section, which is comprised of officers who exhibit strong investigative skill and abilities and are willing to take a lead role on complex investigations. GIS is required to assist the frontline members by supporting files and taking on the more cumbersome, complex, major crime investigations and remain dedicated to the file at the outset of the investigation. Some of the tasks the Enhanced Response Unit take on include video canvassing, conducting thorough and sometimes lengthy interviews, preparing and requesting judicial authorizations to seize cell phones or bank records, for example, collecting evidence, arresting, detaining subjects, criminal informant engagement, and attending court. Due to the threshold with Public Prosecution Service of Canada being very high on how police present disclosure, to both federal and provincial Crown, general investigation members spend a significant amount of time working through each task to ensure we get down to a granular level in preparing documents and files in order for them to be searchable, organized, and indexed. Specialized training on disclosure is required to understand the process. On top of the major and the complex investigations conducted by general investigation members, they're also involved in proactive police work, which includes targeting prolific offenders, locating people on outstanding warrants, drug enforcement, targeting those involved in drug trafficking, projects involving the Provincial Target Enforcement Project, or PTEP, identified threats and involved in including opening proactive investigations. Repeat offenders on a provincially funded program or revoy work, which involves referrals, monthly meetings, offender data management, liaising with the revoy team for offenders in custody. Last year, the General Investigations section assumed the lead on 100 complex files in addition to the ongoing investigations from previous years. The average file load for a General Investigation member is anywhere between 9 and 17 complex files at any given time. The mental health liaison, which is a constable position, is the liaison between the RCMP and the community. Within the past year, the mental health liaison has taken on approximately 120 files and provides support to frontline member files in addition to this. The critical role of the mental health liaison is to promote partnerships with community agencies as well as rapport build with clients, and often assist frontline members on calls for service where mental health is a factor. The community policing constable priorities mainly lie with the community. However, they also assist general duty with large files where a multi-member response is required and assist with youth files. In 2023, the community policing constable took on 251 files. Many of those were involving youth, and provided a number of drug abuse resistance education or DARE presentation to schools in the community. Some of the community initiatives in the community policing constable has provided to the community this past year include bike patrol at special events, prevention and education presentations to schools, bike rodeos for kids to teach bike safety, participate in the interagency team for intimate partner violence as a co-chair, facilitates restorative justice referrals, organizes community events such as Cops for Kids events, food bank drives, and much, much more. We also have one municipally funded forensic identification services, or FIS corporal position. The forensic identification services respond when a crime is committed to secure, record, and document the scene as well as collect evidence or exhibits for analysis. They take crime scene photos, conduct fingerprinting, footwear, and tire track examinations, and look for trace evidence. The work done by the forensic team is crucial in presenting evidence to BC prosecution services for major cases. As you can see in green, we have a number of provincially funded positions, including another forensic identification section position, police dog services, and Indigenous policing who support the surrounding areas of Cranbrook. So last year, Cranbrook RCMP received 8,304 police reports within the municipality of Cranbrook, a 14% increase from 2022. We received 7,571 calls for service in which members actually attended, an increase of 5% from 2022. And we held 569 prisoners over the year. We recovered $140,000 for provincial prisoners held back, which went straight to the municipality. And looking at our crime stats from 2023, we saw an increase in the number of reports to police compared to 2022, such as mischief, which was up 20%, shoplifting up 22%. However, theft from vehicles was down 25%. We saw a 35% increase in reported break-and enters to businesses in 2023, and 16% increase in assaults, the majority of which involve persons known to each other and not random. Residential break and enter reports are comparable to the previous year. We received 48 reports in 2023 compared to 45 in the year prior. While the RCMP do not approve criminal charges, this is done by the BC Prosecution Services, the RCMP does recommend charges by submitting reports to Crown Counsel. Once we submit a report to Crown Counsel and submit evidence, the decision on whether a person is charged with an offence lays with BC Prosecution Service. Our officers work very hard to gather evidence and articulate information about an incident through these reports. And last year, we submitted 332 reports to Crown Counsel and saw a 28% higher report to Crown Counsel approval rate, which is significant. Overall, 82% of our reports to Crown were approved, and this is a very high approval rate. So in 2023, Cranbrook RCMP ran 2 large undercover operations targeting drug dealers selling to the vulnerable population in the community. A number of evidentiary purchases were made, resulting in 8 suspects facing numerous counts under the Controlled Drug and Substance Act. Large quantities of cocaine, fentanyl, and meth were seized, removing these drugs from the street. A large amount of cash was also seized. Further intelligence gleaned from the project will be used for future investigations. These types of large-scale projects are very expensive. While these projects took place within the municipality of Cranbrook, we were able to secure $132,000 in provincial funding through the Provincial Tactical Enforcement Priorities Program to recover the costs associated to these 2 undercover projects, as well as the arrest of a repeat violent offender who was taken into custody with the assistance of the emergency response team. These large projects and high-risk files, particularly ones where other provincial RCMP units are involved, can be quite costly to the municipality. We seek every opportunity to save the municipality money and recover funds from the province, such as in this case. Prior to decriminalization of drugs, drug traffickers could be targeted for illegal activities through the individual possession offenses of their clients. So post-decriminalization, police have had to adapt the response to focus more on undercover operations and technology-led investigational techniques. Cranbrook RCMP also conducted 77 community patrols with bylaws, primarily in the area of Moyer Park, Ridgeview Road, near the Chamber of Commerce and other areas within the community. RCMP members help to ensure the safety of the City of Cranbrook bylaw staff while they conduct enforcement. These patrols are an opportunity for RCMP members to engage with the community, address outstanding warrants or criminal offenses occurring, and we often have people make reports to members when they're out on patrol. In 2023, the Repeat Violent Offending Intervention Initiative, also known as REVOI, was implemented. This is an interagency approach designed to intervene and address violent offenders across BC. The program is comprised of dedicated Crown prosecutors, probation officers, correctional supervisors, and RCMP. This program addresses repeat violent offenders in the community and includes enhanced investigation and monitoring of repeat violent offenders by police. In Cranbrook, there are 7 approved repeat violent offenders, part of the REVOI program. If these REVOI offenders are arrested, they are now held until the case is reviewed with the dedicated Crown. Last year, members conducted several road safety initiatives to improve the safety of our roadway through awareness, prevention, and enforcement activities. In 2023, Cranbrook RCMP issued 107 traffic tickets, 99 traffic warnings, and impounded 62 vehicles due to excessive speeding and impaired driving. These traffic efforts, as well as those by BC Highway Patrol in our area, generated $251,000 in grant funding to the City of Cranbrook. The BC government transfers 100% of net revenues from traffic violations to municipalities that are directly responsible for paying for policing. Cranbrook RCMP members conducted bar patrols on weekends and during special events in the community over the year. Bar Walk is a proactive crime reduction measure where members patrol on foot in the downtown core around bars and pubs in an effort to address incidents that occur immediately and deter people driving while intoxicated. Members also regularly conducted proactive patrols at hotspot locations in the community. These hotspot locations were identified through crime trends and reports to police. As well, Cranbrook RCMP often parked their police vehicles near these locations when writing up reports to provide an increased police presence and deterrent to crime. In 2023, Cranbrook RCMP members spent 273 hours waiting at the hospital for persons apprehended under the Mental Health Act to be seen by a medical professional. When the RCMP apprehends someone, they must stay with them until a designated medical professional sees them. We cannot simply leave them at the hospital. This has resulted in significant amounts of time where 1 and sometimes 2 members are in the hospital, reducing the number of members available to respond to calls for service in the community. Cranbrook RCMP worked collaboratively with Interior Health throughout last year and developed a partnership program where an Interior Health, mental health, and substance use clinician works with police to deliver services to individuals in the community who are experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis. This partnership will assist in diverting individuals in crisis away from the emergency room and allow for service to be delivered in the community. When diversion is not possible and apprehension becomes necessary, the integrated crisis response clinician will be our advocate in the health system, working to ensure services are provided in an expedient manner to minimize the time police spend waiting in the hospital. We are happy to have this partnership in place and look forward to working with Interior Health on this initiative. The integrated crisis response team does not replace the mental health liaison at Cranbrook, just an add-on. Thanks to council support, we added 2 new municipal watch clerk positions in 2023. We now have a total of 4 full-time watch clerk positions, 1 for each frontline watch, who provided tremendous support to frontline policing, taking a significant administrative burden off of members, allowing them to spend more time in the community and respond to calls. In 2023, watch clerks took on 317 file follow-ups from members, provided administrative support on 2,969 files, and assisted with the preparation of about half of the reports to Crown Council we submitted, and just over 150 after-hours report to Crown packages. Watch clerks also help members prepare bail comments, which are submitted to BC prosecution as part of the court package, specific to the risk of releasing the individual back to the community. There is an expectation that the accused is presented to court within 24 hours of an arrest, and the administrative requirements associated to a comprehensive remand or detention submission were not always realistic. Thankfully, the after-hours administrative support provided by Cranbrook's watch clerks have provided a seamless transition as they concurrently research all relevant aspects of the accused's history to provide an exceptional package for a more informed decision by the courts. This can help us request more stringent release conditions for the offender as well, because we have been thorough in providing all the relevant information. This year, we look forward to developing a Cranbrook RCMP strategic plan in consultation with the community and council. Around the fall this year, we'll begin gathering feedback on the community's policing priorities, which will help us set our direction over the next several years. We hope to launch the strategic plan in 2025 and look forward to reporting back on our progress and successes going forward. In April, we will be hosting the first business engagement meeting. We have heard from the business community and recognize some of the challenges that they are facing related to petty crime and other community issues that have significant impacts on them. Together with the City of Cranbrook bylaws, representatives from Cranbrook Attachment will meet with a number of business representatives from the community to listen to the challenges and help inform us of the issues so we can work collaboratively and proactively on addressing the issues. We are actively working through the final steps of creating the Community Engagement Coordinator position, thanks to Council supporting this new position. The Community Engagement Coordinator will work in partnership with the Enhanced Response Unit, will be instrumental in developing and leading crime prevention and reduction initiatives that are responsive to community needs. As we have seen with the crime stats, we experienced an increase in petty crimes in 2023. Many of our new initiatives will be aimed at reducing petty crimes and other issues. With the support of this position, we will be relaunching the Cranbrook RCMP volunteer program, which will help us deliver some of these initiatives. We are currently reviewing the RCMP Auxiliary Constable program, which had been placed on hold for a number of years in BC, to determine if we were able to utilize this program to increase the support we provide to the community. And looking ahead, we look forward to being out and visible in the community more often, through attending community events, proactive patrols, citizens on patrol, and much more, and increasing our visibility with the assistance of RCMP volunteers. We are also working on updating our communication plan to ensure we are providing better communication to council and to the community about who we are, the services we offer, and what we're doing. And we look forward to our continued collaboration and joint patrols with the City of Cranbrook bylaws. Thank you. That concludes our presentation. We welcome the opportunity to answer any questions you may have and look forward to hearing from council from what we would like to see for our policing priorities.
Thank you, Barry, for an extremely comprehensive report. Go around the table. Councillor Stetsky?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. I've lived in Cranbrook for 34 years, and I've always considered Cranbrook a pretty safe place to live. Happy to see some of the new initiatives, which were indeed funded by council to try and make it even a safer place to live. So from your perspective, what do you think are some of the key initiatives that the RCMP would like to implement then next year? And I see one of them was more communications with the community. And I think that certainly that would be one of my priorities. My son lives in Lethbridge and has cameras out on his driveway, and watched people come by and just check the door handles to see whether the vehicles were open or not. They were locked, and they just move on to the next vehicle. And so I think that kind of advice from the RCMP, if there are any trends from a communications perspective, could be really helpful. Just, people have to assume some responsibility for their own safety, but you can certainly help them understand how to get there.
100%. Appreciate that. That will be great with the community engagement coordinator to reiterate those messaging. We sometimes get numb to the fact that, well, you should lock your door. You know, sometimes it's a good reminder. Sometimes it's coming up on Christmas. Hey, don't be leaving packages out in the back. The communication is key, and it's also key listening. You know, when we have more community contact, when people feel that what they say has an impact on what we do. It's like music and playing to the audience. Like Cranbrook is unique from Lethbridge, unique from Kamloops, unique from Surrey, and we appreciate the information that comes through Mayor and Council and other feedback. And that's the priority. Mostly is to listen, to identify what music you want to hear, and we'll try and deliver that product.
And certainly having the new mental health assistance from Interior Health, I think will be very helpful going forward, and hopefully will reduce the number of hours that officers spend in the hospital waiting till a physician can see the individual. And also, it's been really great to see the added cooperation between the RCMP and bylaw. We have allowed money for an additional bylaw officer over the next year, but that cooperative work and the support of the RCMP for our bylaw people is really important.
Thank you. It's important to us as well. They can be caught in a challenging situation, and things can escalate quite quickly. And we don't want to put anybody in that position on their own. So we're happy to work together.
Councillor Peabody?
Thank you, Mayor. Barry, one of the stats you had was shoplifting. It looks like it's up just almost 30%. Like, is most of the shoplifting, is it happening more the big department stores? Is it happening downtown? Is it sort of spread out? Do you have an idea of where the majority of the shoplifting is focused?
That's an excellent question. I can't think of any one place that has it more than anywhere else. We do get a lot of statistics from the larger box stores that have security. They have other ways of finding out, like not till year end when you realize you're missing inventory and stuff for the smaller businesses. I would say that the increases are pretty standard among those. And that's part of our hope now, is to get the word out to have more reporting even when you catch somebody before they make it out. You know, we may still be able to make a case for the theft. They attempted to leave the store without it. But you know, maybe next year we'll be in a position where we're up 50%, but it's not because there's 50% more offenses. We're getting more reporting on it. And strategically, we can jump in on these things, but we have to know about them first. And we want people to feel comfortable in calling us. And you know, some people may think that, oh, the police are too busy for this. And it's like, that's a decision we can make. Like sometimes if there's a violent assault, we have to prioritize that over, you know, the evidence gathering in the first instance of a shoplifting. But we can always circle back to it and find ways. But the main thing is that we have people tell us.
And supplemental, if I may.
Sure, yeah.
So what should retailers be doing to not only help prevent shoplifting, but also just ensure that the shoplifters, if they are caught, that they're also charged?
It's about having the most information to make that decision. If we come across somebody that literally is their first time, you know, it may be something to offer restorative justice, and maybe second, third time. You know, the goal is to stop it from happening. We're big on the accountability thing, but that isn't the be all and the end all. Part of the community engagement coordinator position will be meeting with the businesses, giving the ideas, everything from the design of your business, where the cameras are placed. Sometimes they're placed in positions that are too grainy to even identify the suspect. They'll be the specialized person with the specialized training to be able to go in and give feedback to help make everything prosecutable, and ultimately the deterrent, make Cranbrook a more difficult place to commit crime, no matter where you're from or what your walk of life is.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Bissett, nothing. Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you very much for the report. In terms of the reports to Crown Council, if we look at the 2022 numbers, the reports submitted versus the reports approved, you know, your number was very good, it was 74%, but the number's even better for 2023, 82% of the reports that you submitted to Crown Council were approved. So do you see any link between that improvement with the 4 watch clerks that are now in place? Or are there any other factors? And I just applaud the team for that improvement on to an even better number. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And it is actually like a team stat. Watch clerks are definitely a significant portion of that. We're busy out evidence gathering and doing things, and the administrative stuff can suffer. Evidence is perishable, whether it's a video or, you know, something that's out exposed to rain or, and then we have in that 24-hour time period, we have to get a detailed report in the Crown, and they're working hard while we're out on the road. And the quality of the team, the supervision is exceptional, and everything comes together to make a better product, and really happy with the trend.
Councillor Popov.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good presentation. So you've already identified that this last budget, we've given you some significant budget monies for all these staff hirings and other things. So we're going to see some great stuff with that, I know for sure. Comment, the 273 hours that our RCMP members are staying at the hospital to attend to the mental health issues, that's equivalent to, I don't know, about $250,000 in time or overtime that we might be spending there. It's a big number. I don't know what that is. Are we doing anything as through UBCM or directly with Interior Health through your office to try to get some sort of compensation from Interior Health or the province for this? Because we're there in the IHA property, quote, lack of a better word, babysitting.
We become the primary caregiver for somebody in that situation, and we've made a lot of gains over the last few years with the mental health liaison, with information sharing with Interior Health. Our stays at the hospital used to be significantly higher, and even that 273 doesn't account for the multi-member response when we're there. We did start billing the province about 1.5 years ago for some criminal prisoners that we were holding at the hospital. It was an extension of guard duties, really, and our Sergeant Hurt had found this as part of a memorandum of understanding. So that was one of the ways, but we're not able to do it from the mental health perspective. We are hoping with the engagement of the clinician that the number of mental health act apprehensions will go down, and also the time spent at the hospital. We will see some advantages there, and hopefully there's more investment in the follow-up care that'll minimize people's crisis situations.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you. I wasn't critiquing what we're doing. It's just needs some compensation. Maybe that's what we need to look at through UBCM to bring that forward at the political level. Barry, a few times you've mentioned restorative justice. I understand from the Restorative Justice Board, there's been a decrease lately in referrals to the restorative justice process here in Cranbrook. Is there a reason for that, or is there something on the uptake that we can move that gets your files into their hands to reduce some workload?
Mostly education. We tend to run straight into, I got to do this, and get my report to Crown in. And sometimes you need to take a step back and say, you know, with all the information, should we maybe filling out this 2-page form for a referral instead of this, or concurrent to it? And there's, you know, police restorative justice. There's also Crown Council-based restorative justice, depending on the circumstances in the background. But we have had a presentation that was very enlightening about 2 months ago. And we've had, I think we'll be fairly stable in turnover now, but the messaging that we've put out about restorative justice, sometimes we need to remember that members have transferred in from other places, and that's one of the priorities here. It's not about not necessarily go to jail, but restorative justice is a definite option, but that's my job to be better with the communications internally as well.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think getting the different stream out of the criminal process through to the restorative justice process should be a win-win for the community. And lastly, next time we see you, I'd like to get a longer trend stats, not a 2-year, but maybe a 5-year, just to see what the broader trends are. So thank you.
For sure. Thanks.
Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. One, I wanted to touch on the rural policing positions. Cranbrook's growing, rural communities growing. When was the last time that number got looked at for how many members are in rural?
Off the top of my head, we haven't seen a change in provincial policing positions since 1996, or before 1996, the last record that I'm aware of. In fact, since then, one of our provincial forensic identification section positions was changed to a municipal position. So we've seen probably a reversal. We did request an additional provincial constable this year to bring us to 5, and that wasn't supported by the province. We're still working on any way we can to get support. We currently have a business case in for an extra public servant. But yeah, we haven't kept up with the population growth and the crime outside of the municipality.
And just to follow up on that question, I do have another one too, but where is I assume you meet with the regional district and the regional district, are they supportive of increasing the police service in rural surrounding Cranbrook and probably other rural areas? I think, you know, as Cranbrook, we should be writing a letter to the province and supporting that request, as well as the regional district should as well. So I think maybe that would be something we could work on, and saying we need a bit more police presence out in the rural areas as well, because if you do the simple math, it's one officer per 788 people in town, and outside of the community it's one officer for about 1,850, and that's just area C. So you can see that there is a huge difference there. So anything that we could do to be a help on that, I think, you know, it works both ways.
I certainly would appreciate that. Yeah, there are a lot of statistics that could support that. I believe about 20% of our calls for service are actually outside the municipality, and the ratio of members doesn't really work out in the math there. But yeah, any gains we can get and help with the commitment from other forms of government will be great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And then one question I had around the repeat offenders is just ways that the dots can maybe get connected better with the public. And I'm not sure. I know that you've mentioned that you're working on communications, but you know, like it's disheartening to see we have the ERT team come take down a violent offender with weapons, and then a few weeks later that same person is breached bail or probation, or whatever you want to call it, and they're hunting for them again. I know it's got to be disheartening for the police service, but I think sometimes the dots aren't connected and the public doesn't necessarily understand. You know, we've spent tens of thousands of dollars to capture somebody that the Crown or the judge has decided that they're fine to be free until court date, or they breach something. So how do we raise that awareness a bit more to maybe put some pressure on the repeat violent offenders, especially with weapons?
It's a great question. Within our sphere of control, we just have to adapt to every change in legislation, every reverse onus bail. We had to try and do our job better. It's not that we're not doing it well enough now, but you know, how we investigated things 26 years ago when I started has changed significantly. We just prior to when I got here in '97, an impaired driving report to Crown was 1 page. It was Form 819A for anyone that cares, and it was 1 page. And quickly after, within a few years, I know like it became War and Peace, and now it's crazy the amount of detail that goes into, and that's an impaired driving. That's not a serial sex offender. That's not a robbery, a stabbing. So, we'll do our best to paint that better picture, to give the courts the most information to make a decision. We weren't, they were the things that would be sacrificed on a bail package while we're out gathering evidence. And we're in a better position now to be able to do that. And we need to keep doing those parts and having, good members of the community lobbying for the safety of the community.
Thank you.
Back to Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Barry. Our nearest neighbor, Akam, what's our RCMP relationship with Akam?
Really good. It's exceptional. Great people, great leadership. It certainly helps with having 3 of our Indigenous Police Service members here that are, in regular contact and building up the relationship. But honestly, I can't say enough about the relationship.
I've got a couple of points here. Certainly new program and initiatives, it sometimes takes time to see the full benefits. We're certainly, I think, starting to see the benefits in some of the new initiatives that have been undertaken in the last 2 to 3 years. As Councillor Ray had mentioned, just in the reports to Crown now, that they're processing, that's significant in a community this size. So, and again, that's probably through the Watch Clerk program is making a big difference there. And you've related to a number of different things there. And I think it's that kind of the shift in what's required for community policing for our community. So, you're adapting the model, to our needs in the community, and it's really starting to show. And some of these programs are quite new. So I would expect you give them another 2 or 3 years, and then you're going to be firing 8 cylinders, and I think we'll see the ultimate benefit from them. But we're seeing a significant benefit already. Secondly, and just to go a little bit further from where Council Graham was talking a moment ago, number of calls per year that are in the rural area of Cranbrook, where our detachment is responding. And I don't need it now, but if it's difficult to do, I'm fine. How easy would it be to pull those statistics out where those addresses are outside the city boundary of Cranbrook? Because other taxpayers are paying that bill, the city taxpayer. And if, say it's a 40%, well, then we need to really seriously look at that, because our taxpayers and our policing bill, and not just ours, across the country, we know all emergency services bills are going this way, right? Yeah.
That would be difficult because we've actually ran statistics a number of times. They've gone into those business cases that we've sent off. So whether we can in whole or in part extract from that and provide that can be pretty quick. And I can run the stats tomorrow. It's
appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you could maybe get them over to Mark, and Mark can disseminate them through to council. And my last comment, Barry, is, I really do embrace your comment earlier. Let's make Cranbrook a more difficult place to commit crime. No, that resonates, I think with everybody. And I think the changes we're making are indicative that we're sure trying that. And I'd love nothing better than for this community to have a reputation that we're tough on crime. So thank you.
Thank you, 100%. Appreciate it.
Yep.
And I do want to say thank you again. We wouldn't be anywhere with these initiatives if it wasn't for your support. We've gone through some difficult stretches with resources. We're stagnant for so many years in different things, and it takes a lot of trust to give us that, to do it, and we really want to show that it works. It's not about providing more resources so we can dial back on effort. The effort's still going to be there. You'll see more of it, and they're difficult times to do this. We fully appreciate that, and every member of the detachment really appreciates the support we've been given, and we're not going to let you down.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Barry. It sounds like an old cliche, but please pass on to your staff that they are truly valued and appreciated in this community.
Thank you. I certainly will.
So thank you very much for your presentation. Have a good night. Up next, reports. We have a report from finance. It's a bylaw for consideration is the 2024 revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 4137, 2024. This bylaw is back at council for adoption tonight. So we've seen it before us previously. So can I get a motion that council adopt the 2024 revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 4137, 2024 as presented? Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. From finance again, the next bylaw is the airport parking and business control amendment bylaw number 4138, 2024. This bylaw is before council for first, second, and third reading. Can I please have Christian Chernov and Finance provide a brief overview of the report, please? Welcome, Christian.
Mayor, Council, thank you. So I think it's important for the benefit of everyone in chambers and possibly listening this evening, just to get a high level view of the airport finance model before we go into the proposed bylaw change. The airport, as we're aware, is a self-sustaining business model, user pay model, so not a single dollar of municipal tax goes to the airport. In that light, I think it's just an important thing to keep that in mind when we look at the fee structures of the airport. The parking fees, what we're addressing here on this bylaw, have not been changed for just shy of a decade and a half, since close of 2009, early 2010, it came into effect. And the increase that we're proposing doesn't quite keep up with inflation. As we know, like $8 in 2009 would be more than $10 today, but it is enough for us to do the work that needs to be done to keep up with the maintenance of the parking lot and the projected growth. Since the rates as they currently are set took place, we've had 2 parking lot expansions. And right now we're in the midst of, we're in the home stretch of putting EV chargers in at the airport. And the next phase will be repaving of the oldest part of the parking lot that was not expanded. That is coming near end of life, and we're going to have to expand as well. So with all those things in light, the best thing was to look at parking fees across the province and within Alberta and see where we sat. And we sampled airports throughout BC and Alberta to see where we were and with what we were proposing was in line. And I will say, we were very low. And with this proposed increase, we're still very low, but not off the chart. To give you some examples, of the 11 airports of similar size that we looked at, we're one of only 3 that only charge $1 an hour for parking, and that is going to remain. We're not proposing changing that. The airports, if we look at comparisons like Comox, it's $14 a day. Kamloops is 13. Lethbridge is about the same. Nanaimo 12. Prince George 15. Some of these that are larger, of course, are a lot more, like Kelowna at 24, and we don't need to talk about the parking in Calgary Airport. But $10 a day, we feel, does keep us on track with our 20-year projected growth spectrum and what we see happening at the airport in the parking lot. Along with that, that would also include the weekly rate, which there are discounts for longer stays, of course. The weekly rate would go up from $56 a day to $70. And the changes then to the annual rate are less, but we don't have a lot of people who buy annual passes. So that's why I do feel that this amount of increase, while it's not enormous, will suffice for another decade or so. I don't foresee having to make a lot of other changes in the near term, as long as the passenger growth also grows in step. As a lot of you have heard before, our goal at this airport to promote new air service and retain service is to be one of the most cost-effective airports for air carriers to operate at. And that means not burdening the airlines with all of the costs of the airport. We really we designed this airport, although it's quite ambitious, to only have 50% of the revenue required for the airport to survive be aeronautical revenue. and the other 50% to be other business and other non-aeronautical revenue streams. And keeping it that 50-50 balance means that we can be quite profitable for airlines and motivate them to keep service and to grow. And although it's not in this report, I do have some really exciting news that I think it's okay to share, that I just, as you know, I'm pushing and pushing to always see improvements, and it's been really hard since the pandemic. And as of today, I had the most uplifting probably communication I've had in several years when it comes to work anyway. Our service to Calgary will finally be making that step to mainline WestJet service with Encore's Q400 aircraft twice a day. And that frees up some aircraft so they can double capacity to Vancouver and have 4 a day to Vancouver with the SOBs that are provided by Pacific Coastal. So moving from 540 seat capacity a day to about 800. And of course, the run-on effect of this is much better connection times. I flew back from just within our province yesterday and got home at 2 a.m. after leaving in the morning. So this really helps to those kinds of situations, as well as it drives fares down, because the more seats an airline can move, the more people there are to share that cost, and it generally makes for more competitive fares. So I think it's all really good. I know it's not part of this report, but it happened after this was submitted, so I just wanted to share that with you today.
Great news. Well, thank you very much. I'll put a resolution on the floor here. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to the Airport Parking and Business Control Amendment Bylaw number 4138 2024 is presented? Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray, discussion. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tristan, you mentioned the EV charging stations, I guess, at a parking stall. Who would or would not be eligible to use it? Like if I'm going to park there for 2 weeks, am I going to be allowed to stay there occupying it for 2 weeks?
Councillor Popoff, through Mayor, I think there's going to be a variation of things that are going to happen over time with EV charging in those spaces. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where I would probably be able to say yes, because so many of the parking spots will be EV charging in the long term. In the short term, the phases that are going in now, these are only for parking short term, and they're essentially there for people to park at if they've returned and their battery is so depleted they're not going to be able to get to another fast charging station safely away from the airport. It's not meant for people to stay there and get a full charge. It's meant for people to charge to get to another safe location to charge.
Thank you, and good news about the airport capacity with Calgary. So does that mean when we now travel WestJet from Calgary, we're not going to be in the gate known as the Tombs?
Yeah, Mayor, through you to Councillor Popoff. That is another one of the benefits, although not as monumental as the others. It is important, and actually, yeah. So all travel, and I think more importantly for the visitors that are coming internationally, these flights are going to line up ideally with international and long haul travel as domestic as well, but it's really designed for the inbound tourist as well, and for that experience to be from a bridged gate at the main terminal in Calgary through to Cranbrook is a much more refined experience for the visitor for sure.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Just really quick, Tristan. You touched on it really quick that the price to park in Cranbrook is much cheaper than the price to park in Calgary. Is that something that our airport is marketing as why fly through our airport compared to the Calgary airport?
Mayor, through you to Councillor Peabody. The short answer is yes. There have been several campaigns about that over the years about but we've never done it solely on that front, but we have marketed a lot along the lines of, if you look at this at your day, the overall cost, including your time, as well as fuel, as well as meals along the way, and the parking, all those things combined, how much more effective it is to fly local. We have not really stretched out into messaging that way for quite a while, because the result when we early on did that, we saw a lot of growth, especially eastbound through Calgary. And it seems the traction took and it sort of stuck. But maybe that remessaging of that sort of stuff. I actually had a vision at one time of creating an app that you would do all that for you and actually show you the value of flying through your local airport as opposed to a diversion airport. Because this is a problem across the whole country, not just in Cranbrook, with so many people often thinking it's less expensive to drive even to the States to fly and not taking into account all the ancillary costs.
Council further? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to the Airport Parking and Business Control Amendment Bylaw number 4138, 2024 is presented? Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Blissett. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to the Airport Parking and Business Control Amendment Bylaw number 4138, 2024 as presented? Mover, Councillor Ray, Councillor Blissett. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Tristan. Good news. Next bylaw for consideration tonight is the Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4139, 2024 regarding 2400 30th Avenue North. This bylaw is before council for the first time. Can I please have Engineering and Development Services provide an overview of the report?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, this report is for consideration for council. First reading of an OCP amendment to change the land use designation of the property from low-density residential to high-density residential in anticipation of a forthcoming rezoning that would rezone it to permit a higher density or high-density multifamily development consisting of 3 5-story apartment blocks, as well as a parcel available for a proposed seniors housing complex and a daycare. So, which would bring a total of about 331 new dwelling units on board if at build out for this proposal. It's currently a treed site, vacant, undeveloped, and it's located on 30th Avenue North at the Panorama, just below Panorama there. So that's.
Thank you, Rob. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4139, 2024 and authorize staff to undertake public consultation on the proposed amendment? Mover, please. Councillor Blissett. Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Very excited to see this proposal coming forward. I live in Park Royal, and of course 30th Avenue from Park Royal through to Highway 3 has been one of the worst stretches of road in Cranbrook for decades, many decades. So that could improve. But the only concern or question I have is what's the situation around sewer and water to accommodate this larger development?
Councillor Setsky through the mayor. The lot on 30th Avenue does already front water and sewer. It's a 12-inch water main and an 8-inch sewer. From just a quick analysis, it appears it has the required capacity to accommodate it. We're still waiting for final reports from the developers, engineers on that forthcoming, but it appears that it'll be able to accommodate it.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. What's the likelihood of this actually happening?
Through the mayor to Councillor Graham. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, and the reality is that when it comes to development, there's lots of factors. Majority of the factors are beyond the municipality's control as to whether or not we see fruition of a development in general. But to the work we've been doing with this developers can be shown in the package. Certainly, the level of information they've already provided to date, and the duration we've been working with them. You know, it shows that they are truly wanting to at least move forward. You know, how long build out could take. You know, who knows? I mean, the market conditions, obviously, we've experienced the past 2 years have significantly impacted developments. And I spoke to a developer a week ago who came to visit us. You know, and it's just something that's felt. And again, it's beyond our control. But what we do have The level of work they've been putting in definitely provides a little bit of confidence that they're serious about this, and they're continuing to work with us, and even gone so far as through recommendations with discussions with staff is looking at and discussing with potential providers to provide a site for seniors housing and a daycare, and they've been in discussions with those folks here in Cranbrook as well. So they're putting a lot of work into it. I mean, that's the best we can have. And just, hope for the best that all the conditions line up that would actually see them get off the ground at some point.
Councillor Peabody, then Councillor Statsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm all in favor of the development. This is fantastic. I'm curious what the impact will be on the four-way stop on 30th and Panorama. Adding 330 units plus the I think it's about 40 other lots. West Core will also be utilizing that intersection. We have to maybe I don't know if we'd have to rethink if that would really affect that four-way stop at all. Would that be a good location for a roundabout maybe?
Councillor Peabody through the mayor. They are in the process of completing a traffic study. They are required to do it as part of the zoning and the distance to the highway. So we'll see what comes of that. That intersection and the connection to the highway through 22nd where the rotary path goes is a development cost charge project if it comes up. But we do have a preliminary design that we undertook a couple of years ago for a roundabout at that intersection if needed. But we'll see what happens with the traffic impact assessment.
Councillor Statsky.
Thank you, Mayor. So what tools do we have to make sure that the daycare and the seniors housing component absolutely are part of this development?
So through the mayor to council, as far as actual tools to ensure that it happens, again, as we've discussed in the past, we're sort of limited to how we can ensure that something gets done. I suppose, if it were the wish of council, doing some sort of development agreement, perhaps that would require that development to take place, at a certain stage of the overall development. But I don't believe that this developer is necessarily going to be the one who's going to do this work. They're providing the land, as indicated in their letter. They may be the builders, they may not be, but they are working with providers. So I'm not aware of any strong tools that we could say that thou felt have to put this seniors housing in and daycare in before something else, unless we went into a phased development agreement of some sort. But at this point, we haven't considered that as of yet, or the need for it. Certainly, if this were to be supported by council throughout the process, it would certainly set the stage and provide that opportunity for it to get done. And then, of course, an affordable seniors housing project and daycare is going to be subject to funding. Provincial funding, which we have no control over. We can provide all the support we can. We can encourage them to do it. We can, those types of things. But really beyond that, I'm not sure what else we'd be able to do.
Yeah.
And
I see in the background information, Rob, that the applicant has expressed a willingness to register covenants on title upon subdivision of the acquired lots to ensure that both a daycare facility and seniors houses are built. So obviously there's a willingness there from the applicant at this point in time.
That's correct. Sorry. Yeah, that's a good point, Mayor. It's that would basically, we could do it in such a way that it would restrict the use on that land to those particular uses. And so someone couldn't come along and build something else. But to the extent of that, but it would give that tool. So if they created a daycare site and someone came in and said, I want to do something else, we'd say the covenant says you have to do a daycare. So, and then it would allow us the power to not approve permits for stuff.
Any further, council? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rob. I think we still have, let me see. Pardon me, the last bylaw for consideration tonight is the official community plan amendment bylaw for 4141-2024 regarding cabins in the woods on the east side of the St. Mary's neighborhood plan at Shadow Mountain. This bylaw is before council for first reading. Can I get engineering and development service to provide an overview of this report, please?
Me again. So this proposed amendment is to change the St. Mary's neighborhood plan to designate the property along the St. Mary's River to facilitate development of 12 riverfront residential lots in an open space parcel. The property is currently designated urban reserve and community open space. And as noted in the report, the urban reserve policy states that it wasn't pre-planned for development until such time as an OCP amendment was brought forward. And so the developer at this time would like to try and pursue this subdivision. And so the designation change will be to the estate single family residential and community open space, and then a subsequent rezoning to change the zoning. It would become forthcoming at the next council.
Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4141, 2024, and authorize staff to undertake public consultation on the proposed amendment? Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Peabody. Discussion, Councillor Bassett, then Councillor Stetsky, then Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in reading through this, I have some concerns about the flooding hazard. And I mean, in going through that lengthy report, I think it says, you know, they're fairly confident they're okay for the 100-year flood, less so for the 200 and nothing beyond. And then there's also this climate change issue, which we know is happening. And the likelihood of significant flooding events is high. And I was looking at this and going, yeah, but people like riverfront lots. I understand why they want to develop it. And I know in many places in British Columbia, we are on a floodplain. And I live on a floodplain where it is, but that's historic development. And I do think we have a lot of other choices as to where to develop there. So I'm very hesitant about this because of that flooding hazard. I'm not saying I would stop it at first reading, but I think we really need to be looking at this as we go forward, because we do have a responsibility to future property buyers to ensure that that's a good place to have built a home for the long run. Any comments on that?
Sure. Through the mayor, I can certainly, so on page 16 under the flood hazard mitigation section 7.1, they do indicate that the flood construction levels established on their table are based on the 200-year flood profile. So, I mean, I'm certainly no expert in floodplain development, but the three of us attended a presentation by these professionals. And as you can see by their credentials, I mean, they're PhDs. This is their job. This is their jam. And they went through quite a detailed presentation on this report and the study, and actually took into account climate change modeling and information to come up with these numbers using the historical data. And at the end of the day, they're the professionals who are putting their name on the line, saying that this development can occur safely if they meet the subject conditions, and those conditions would form part of the overall development. The one thing that I did note in the report is, as part of this application, we did mention, and they're aware that the city's floodplain bylaw does apply here. And so in the floodplain bylaw, it's a 30-meter setback and 3 meters above the high water mark. And basically, they will provide a letter of assurance that the flood construction levels established by the professionals will either meet or exceed that number. If they did not, then they would have the option to make a request, I guess, for lack of a better term, a variance. It's not a variance because you can't vary floodplain, but a variance to the floodplain bylaw using this professional report as the basis to seek a different flood construction level. But I think, again, not being an expert, I have to rely on the confidence of these experts who have said that that this development can be done safely if they meet these conditions. And, in speaking with them, just, I threw it out there. I said, how would this compare to other places in BC? Not my expert, right? And it's certainly development in the floodplain is not an uncommon thing. We can't guarantee Mother Nature. We can't guarantee, a number of other factors, but, it certainly provided me a little bit more confidence in just the knowledge that I gained in reading the report and having the presentation. But beyond that, we would just have to ensure that the development complies with all the recommendations in the flood report, including things like we've discussed at the staff level, no basements, those kinds of things, right? Because just through experience, in flood, I've worked at the regional district development in the Elk Valley, Elk River. When they say you can't have habitable space below the flood construction level, when someone puts in a basement, leaves it empty, and 2 years later, you don't need a permit, you go put in your rec room, now you have habitable space, right? I've learned. And so one of the things I would recommend and look at recommending to the developer, for example, would be that, they provide a covenant that would restrict basements for creation of habitable space as part of that. And so that's sort of where it's at. So it did take into account the 200-year flood using the historical data. It was quite an extensive study, and I'm sure if there were other questions later on through this process as part of the zoning, we could certainly mention it to them if they would have the ability to come speak to it at the public hearing part, if there was concerns, if you had further concerns. Yeah.
Councillor Peabody?
Thank you, Mayor. The question I had, and this is really just from not really knowing the topography of this area. Do we have to worry about access for emergency vehicles down to the riverbank? Like, I don't know how steep, like it does mention that there's steep slopes in the area. Is the road going to be built to a standard that fire trucks and ambulances will have no issues getting up and down?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, the primary access will be able to accommodate first responders, and it'll be best practices of the BC Fire Code. The one concern with this development is the second access required or recommended under the OCP for wildfire, because it really only has one access into this area. The second access would pretty much, they've said, would be walking out. So that is one of the concerns that we've noted in regards to the OCP in regards to access.
Okay, I do have a second question, if I may. No, looking at this area, it seems like in the early planning stages, one thing that was missed out on is public access to the waterfront. That's just something that we don't have in the Shadow Mountain area, besides one park that I guess is very, very steep to get down to. By approving this development, are we missing out on an opportunity to have access to the water to the public? Like, I know this is it's a private property, it's a private area, but are we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by developing all the waterfront properties?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor again. As a proven officer, I have had lengthy discussions with MOTI looking at the requirements for access to water. It is very difficult for us legally as a city to obtain access to water at this point. That decision was almost made many years ago. MOTI will not allow access off the highway near the bridge. So the only way that the city could get access to the water would be to actually take over the private road through the toll development, probably through expropriation or buying out all of the shares of that road, including the infrastructure under it. So to say we're missing the boat here, unfortunately, it's really impossible to get access for the city unless we go to extremes.
The boat sailed a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stetsky?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Three concerns with this proposal. The first one, of course, is fundamental around urban sprawl. We can't continue to say that we are opposed to urban sprawl and continue to approve more urban sprawl. I've always been taught in my lifetime that two wrongs don't make a right. So continuing to approve urban sprawl, I think, flies in the contradiction of whether or not we are in favor of that. Secondly, it is a floodplain, and nature, particularly fueled by climate change, has ignored 100 and 200-year levels all around the world in the last while. It is a floodplain, first and foremost. I hope there is never a serious flood on the St. Mary's River, but I do believe that we put the people that may be buying these properties at risk of a flood in the future. Thirdly, I was the regional manager for Fish and Wildlife for the East and West Kootenays for a number of years. And river corridors, creek corridors are key wildlife movement corridors. And anytime you put wildlife and humans in conflict, and this is a wildlife corridor, wildlife always loses. So for those three reasons, urban sprawl, built in a floodplain, and the impact on wildlife, I'm opposed to this development.
Further? Oh, sorry. You got a comment? No?
Only that, the only comment at this point is, so majority of the development, they originally did do their environmentally sensitive area development permits that did take into account wildlife movement, and these lands at the time were not covered by that because they weren't anticipated for development. So they will be subject to the environmentally sensitive area development permit, the wildfire development permit, the steep slopes development permit, and then the subdivision requirements and development. So what the results of those would be, we don't know yet, but they would be required to address those matters through this process if they were successful.
Councillor Popoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm satisfied that the experts with the PhDs are going beyond just the 40-year and the 50-year, and they're not even doing the 100, they're doing the 200 in consideration of atmospheric floods and oceans and everything else that might happen in the bazillion years ahead of us. So I'm okay with that. The community open space is providing a lot of area around the waterfront that may not, looks like it's going to be open. So there might be still some animal access that way. And we got to remember this neighborhood plan, urban neighborhood plan was approved way back when before our time. And, you know, we're going to continue to get these applications. Now that we're at full water and sewer there, the owners want to start building on these properties. So we are doing some mixes of middle, medium density. And I think there's even something coming forward with some higher density out there. You're right. It's the far end of Cranbrook. I'm not keen about that, but I think we have to follow and go with the urban neighborhood plan that was proposed for this whole piece of property, Shadow Mountain, as it was intended 20 some years ago.
Okay, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Along the same lines as Councillor Popov, and for our council's benefit and maybe more for the public, can you just remind us what year it was that this part of Cranbrook became part of Cranbrook?
I believe it was 2007, 2008.
Okay, so
It was when the municipal boundary expansion occurred.
it's been quite some time, and I hear what Councillor Stetsky is saying about urban sprawl. I do hear that, and I think it would be a different conversation if this were a new area that we were looking at bringing into Cranbrook. So 2007, 2008, this has been a long-standing decision. Can you speak a little bit maybe to the potential benefits of densification of this outlying area in terms of helping with infrastructure costs or those kinds of things?
Sure. So I guess with respect to this parcel or the general development as a whole, because from a planning perspective, I would have some concern with densification of those lots on the riverfront, right? Adding more units and putting, however, that's not what they're proposing. The one thing we do have to take into consideration, though, is the new legislation that because they're single family lots, they might be allowed to have more units. Now, at this time, it's not, it's understood, I believe that the developer is not intending to want to have the ability to have 4 plexes on each one of those lots. And it's my understanding also that through the legislation that they can still restrict that. So some of that will be discussed. But from an overall development perspective, as was noted, by Councillor Popov, the lands are now fully serviced with sewer and water. Sewer and water cost. And I mean, I'm certainly not an asset management expert, but I've learned a lot over the years, and those things will have to be paid for at some time. And so, having increased density will spread those costs. Certainly, it will potentially allow for additional services perhaps out there as the community builds out. You might get a community node. It will provide for a number of housing forms. So I think one thing that, from my perspective, at least on the east side so far, is the biggest gains we've seen with respect to this current ownership group is the 2 ownership groups is that they've taken what amounted to just strictly single family lots, both small and or estate lots. And now we have applications been approved and in process waiting approvals for medium and high density housing. So it now creates a mix of housing opportunities and types in an area which was originally slated for truly would have been urban sprawl, like, small single family lots. But that, again, that was the decision of the day. So of course, more density will help pay for that infrastructure in the long run because it is ours. It's in the city limits. And I think, we have to take that into consideration. Again, like I think you mentioned, if it was new, this was a new discussion, I probably would be speaking differently about things from a planning perspective, but it's certainly densification of it will help, I think, at the end of the day, more than what we would than if we had it just be what it was in 2007, 2008. So.
Yep.
Anything to add?
Thank you. And I agree with that perspective, certainly. And I do understand the sprawl. If we were taking more area into the city, that is part of the city of Cranbrook. And we know we need more tax revenues from that area. Over time, pay for the maintenance and the cost of services and whatnot in there. So, yeah. And I think on these types of property too, you wouldn't see the people that are going to be building there doing infill housing in Cranbrook. Okay, they're building on those properties. Are going to buy those products for a specific reason. So, I support that. Question, I guess, is regarding setback and a no basement. Can we get covenant on title for those?
100%.
Okay.
Those would be covenants, and in fact, I believe that they might have even recommended that.
Beautiful.
These requirements be put in as covenants, and if not, the approving officer beside me, we've had those discussions. That would be the tool that we would use in this case.
Great.
And so we would be certainly establishing at a minimum the setback lines that are identified in the map as restrictive covenant areas, the setbacks, the flood construction level, any other recommendations. Everything that's recommended in this report would likely, if possible, be covered by a restrictive covenant.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Councillor Stetsky is opposed. The motion, it's recorded, yeah. And the motion is carried. Oh, did I forget one here? No. We're moving on to new business now. First item of new business is the Cranbrook Municipal Lands Acquisition and Disposition Policy, number 65-05. Can I please have Engineering Development Services provide a brief overview of the report? Santana, you got the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I present to you the draft of the Municipal Lands Acquisition and Disposition Policy. This policy was created to form a framework on how to process requests for land disposal received by the public, as well as consideration for the city of opportunities to acquire future land. Sorry, thanks. Historically, there has not been a consistent manner in how the city approaches these types of transactions. So this policy is rooted in transparency, consistency, and accountability in alignment with council's strategic priorities to guide that process. The proposed policy is designed to outline the principles by which council can exercise its discretionary power to acquire and dispose of land. It outlines circumstances when council can consider the acquisition or disposition of city-owned land, considerations for eligibility for disposal of land below market value, and general guidelines for processing land exchanges. The attached procedure is intended to guide staff on how to process applications for disposition and acquisition and acquisition, of city-owned land. It's currently proposed to be reviewed in alignment with council's strategic priorities or every 4 years. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion that council approve the Municipal Lands Acquisition and Disposition Policy number 6505? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett. Discussion. No discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Santana. Next item of business is regarding the subdivision preliminary layout approval issuance length. Can I please have Engineering and Development Services provide a brief overview of the report and an explanation of that title? No.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Westcore Lands Limited, they're affiliated with the earlier high-density development, but they've applied and received a PLA for a subdivision across Panorama Road for 41 lots. Their PLA is was issued for a year. It was extended for 6 months, and they've now written a letter because it's going to expire in May, and they want more time without having to pay the fees. So they've requested for council to extend or amend the bylaw to allow PLAs to be extended, or sorry, issued for up to 2 years and extended for twice up to 1 year length each. Currently, the subdivision bylaw allows the approving officer to issue a PLA for 1 year and an extension of up to 6 months once. Currently, the practice has been as if a PLA has been extended and expired, the developer just repays the fees, will review the subdivision again and reissue a PLA. And again, I guess a PLA is a preliminary letter of approval letter. It's a letter of conditions they have to meet to fulfill the subdivision requirements to get it signed off. So usually that involves works and services, minimum zoning requirements, covenants, different development permit requirements, things like that. Given council two options. One's to direct staff not to amend the bylaw rate, to bring forward a bylaw amendment for council consideration. The other option is to direct staff to bring forward an amendment bylaw to council for consideration. Brought forward those two options because we're currently in the process of working on a new subdivision bylaw at this time. And it is going to take not a lot of staff time, but a couple of days for sure to pull together an amendment like that and go through all the checks and staff reports and whatnot. From a practicality standpoint, I think a 2-year term is fair nowadays compared to the 1 year, because as we know with our capital program, it's hard to get approval or design for works and services and get it constructed in 1 year. So a 2-year term is fair in our opinion, but it's something we were going to review as the new bylaw process going forward anyways, but leave it up to council if they want staff to bring forward a bylaw for at this time, or leave it to that other process.
I'll put two options out, then we can go to question. Okay. Thank you, Curtis. I've got two possible options here, and then, so can I read them both out at the same time? Somebody, or actually, no.
I'll move option 2.
Okay, option 2. Okay, option 2, the council directs staff to draft a subdivision and development amendment bylaw for future council considerations to accommodate West Core Lands Limited requests in their letter dated February 12th, 2024. Seconder, Councillor Bissett. Discussion, Councillor Bissett.
What I was wondering about was how long you thought it would be till the new bylaw that you were talking about developing. How long would that be until we saw it?
Councillor Bissett through the mayor. Likely the earliest would be later this year, but probably likely until next year. So it's going to be a considerable amount of time because we've just started the process because the budget was approved.
Okay, so that affects, I mean, I certainly would like us to go ahead with this because I mean, we do want them to develop, and I understand things take a long time, and sometimes working with the city can take a long time. So I think we need to accommodate that.
Councillor Stetsky, then Councillor Biwani.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So in terms of the new bylaw, what changes will be proposed, and will the changes be more in line with what they're asking for here? I'm just trying to understand the process, and how often does this come up? And thirdly, how much of the delay ultimately could rest with city staff kind of helping create the delay in these processes?
Councillor Stetsky through the mayor. What'll be in the new bylaw at this point is unknown. It was something we were going to look at, look what other communities were doing. It was likely we were going to look at this direction of going longer anyways, just given construction times. Maybe not, I don't have an exact answer, but we're looking at the whole bylaw, the whole administrative works and services, bring it up to date, because the bylaw itself is 16, 17 years old now, the existing one. The last time we received a request to extend like this was back actually when Shadow Mountain was first initiated, and then the current bylaw allows for a PLA up to 5 years long if there's 300 or more lots created. Again, we haven't seen that since Shadow Mountain. It was only used the once. However, there has been multiple times over the last few years where a developer has had to reapply for subdivision. They just usually pay their fees again. We issue a new PLA that's good for the entire year and they start the process. Given that, as long as there's no big bylaw updates or change in public opinion, usually fairly quick to reissue a new PLA, but I think it's more surety to the developer if we do an amendment like this to give them the extension rather than have to reapply through the new process, through a whole new process.
Councilman
quick
Peabody,
follow-up.
then Councilor Stetsky.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. So has Westcor, have they already had their one extension, the 6-month extension?
Councilor Peabody through the mayor, yes, they've already received 6 months extension.
Okay, so they can no longer have another extension. It's May.
Yeah.
They either have to pay the $4,500 or no, hopefully this goes through. There's no other chance just to postpone their permit until the new bylaw is created.
Yeah, that's correct to my understanding. And if we did do an amendment like this, they would be relying on my understanding would be the second 1-year amendment because they've already received one in the initial, but
Gotcha.
that we haven't defined the wording in the bylaw amendment yet either, so.
Okay, and then why is there a 3-year limit on the PLA? Like why? Like that's just one thing I didn't understand. What is the purpose of having a limit on the PLA?
One of the main purpose for having the time limit on the PLA is it gives surety to the developer during that period that if they follow those those requirements, they'll get approved. But during that period, if we went for a longer time, the bylaws may change, standards may change, then they're still only held to the bylaws that they got the letter for. So if we issue a PLA for a development like this, we change our subdivision bylaw during the length of that PLA, they would still only fall within the old bylaw and not the new one, if that makes sense. So it's to guarantee them the standards that they would have to follow or the requirements would be set given that letter for that duration of time.
Councilor Stetsky?
There was no map accompanying this. I'm just curious as to where the lots are. You said this is different from the 331.
Yeah.
Across the road from it, or?
Yeah, Councilor Stetsky through the mayor. Didn't accompany a map with this because the request is more about the PLA length than the actual development itself. But the subdivision they're looking at is directly across Panorama Road, so directly to the south of Panorama Road, backing onto. Oh, it's in the. Sorry,
It's in the rezoning, the OCP amendment. It's just directly across from Panorama.
Yeah, backing onto Mount Royal.
Good. Further council? All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Peabody is opposed. The motion is carried. Thank you, Curtis. Next item of new business tonight is from Engineering Development Services regarding water meter readiness. Engineering and Development Services, again, can you please provide us a bit of an overview?
Thank you, Mayor Price. Given previous discussions with council about the water meter business case and planning document, I know that's not the direct name, but I apologize. Had a chance to look at some of our bylaws, given some of the comments about why aren't we putting meters in now? What are we doing? Bringing this forward to council because I believe we can look at implementing readiness techniques so that it's more accommodating when we are and cheaper to the municipality, less expensive when we actually go to impose meters. The one reason it's not actually stating to put in water meters right now is we don't know what meter we're going to go with and how the reading capabilities. So it's to put in the readiness. So it's making sure there's enough straight pipe on each side of where the meter would go. There's access to it. We're talking at the new services at the lot line because we're discussing the use of what's called deep vaults. So it's not actually in the houses. So there's no tampering with the meters, or if there's a leak on private property, they could go at the property line where instead of a curb stop. That's some of the details. Staff would be working out some of the details with our consultant who's working on the water meter business case. But I wanted to bring it forward because it's not clear in the bylaws that we have to require it. It's all about should, or the city engineer may require metering. So we wanted to get council's opinion if it's something they wanted to look at moving forward with at this time that we're considering metering.
Thanks, Curtis. Can I get a motion that council directs staff to require water meter readiness provisions be installed as part of new developments and new or upgraded water service? Motion, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
It's a little bit of the cart before the horse, since we haven't had the opportunity to vote on water meters in general, but I do believe we need to start somewhere. And so I'm certainly going to vote in support.
Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So Curtis, this would be common best practices that other communities have already established?
Yes, I wouldn't say most communities, but a lot of communities following the best practices for water usage and their water systems would already actually have meters in place. This is just kind of a first baby step in the process, just so we know new development and new services are following this, so we can easily implement water meters should council wish to go there in the future.
Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm totally fine with this. I just want to make sure that we're not picking the most expensive choice for this readiness, that we're looking at how we're going to implement and how it's going to work. Because I think it's great. I think it's something we should have done a long time ago. But I just want to make sure that we're kind of looking at what other municipalities have done or are doing in new subdivisions, that we're on par. We're not making something new that all of a sudden we have to get new TRICON and cast new things for.
Councillor Graham, through the mayor, we're staff level, we're looking at best practices from other communities. From a retrofitting plan, initial thoughts from staff. Again, this will all come out in the plan and the report, probably in the early fall. Is the new house that existing houses would be retrofitted with a meter inside the house, where new developments would be put on the property line, and then when we go through the capital program or new services are installed, it would be put on the property line in a vault. Again, the idea behind that is to avoid tampering, to make sure we're catching leaks under slabs in the yards, things like that. It's not the most expensive option. They pre-make, your companies pre-make. It's like a 16-inch pipe or 14-inch pipe. That's the bury depth. And it's actually, the meter sits in there and it can be pulled up by a hook. It's coiled pipe underneath. And it's a way that our crews don't actually have to go on the hoses if an issue with the meter or something as well. And in some cases, it might be cheaper than retrofitting into a house if somebody's basement's all built and things like that. So it's an option, but again, we're exploring that as probably our primary option.
Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item up on new business is regarding Rockies Fest by Spirit of the Rockies. Can I please have Recreation and Culture provide a brief overview of the report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So on February 5th, Council received a letter request from Spirit of the Rockies about their Spirit of the Rockies Festival. Two-day concert to take place during the Spirit of the Rockies Festival inside Western Financial Place. At the end of that meeting, Council asked staff to investigate more. So I've had a meeting with the Spirit of the Rockies Fest people, and the reasoning behind hosting inside Western Financial Place is the weather uncertainty for such a grandiose event outside. It's one thing to have the smaller stages with less expensive equipment and artists, but inside you're guaranteed to have a nice atmosphere. In part of that conversation, determining who was the promoter and how did Spirit of the Rockies Festival fit inside of that, etc. So it is a for-profit business that is the promoter behind this, with the intent that any profits realized would go back into developing other events at Spirit of the Rockies Festival in general. But there may be other items that happen with that money. You know, they'll be for the festival, but they'll be for other items as well, other events as well. So maybe the strongman will become bigger and bigger and not always just be part of the festival. So really, I have answers to any questions you may or may not have.
We've got two options here. Would somebody from council like to propose an
I'd like to move option 1, please.
option 1, seconder for option 1? Councillor Blissett. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky. Councillor Ray. Councillor Graham.
I was a bit surprised to see this back before council because I thought we voted on they would have to pay the hard costs associated with renting Western Financial Place at one of our previous meetings. Am I incorrect on that?
Councillor Ray, and then Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Trevor, for the additional information and for meeting with the Spirit of the Rocky folks to get additional details. So for me, from a governance perspective, I appreciate the final paragraph of your report where you note that in the Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges bylaw, that the Director of Recreation and Culture already has the ability to negotiate rental fees lower than those fees outlined in the bylaw. So to me, I think, we received correspondence and we're doing our best to be responsive, but from a governance perspective, it actually went a little bit sideways because we already have a bylaw that covers this. And I know for myself, I wish I could remember all of our policies and bylaws, but I can't. So we really rely on our management team as our subject expert folks to remind us when there's a policy or bylaw that already applies, because we shouldn't be coming back to council with a motion as a one-off when we already have a bylaw or a policy that's in place. And again, on a governance level, I'd say if we think we need to make a change, then we shouldn't be doing it as a one-off. We should be looking at the bylaw or the policy to make the change. So I think from a really it's a bit of a nerdy governance perspective. We just went a little bit sideways on this. And I'm really glad to see that Trevor has the ability to negotiate and to have those conversations. And I really support Trevor in doing that. Yeah, that's why I'm voting, that's why I put forward option number 1, because we don't want to be doubling up council table motions with bylaws or policies that already exist. I just don't think that's good practice.
CEO Fritchwood, do you have a comment?
So just in response to Councillor Ray through the mayor, to be clear, yes, that exists in policy, but this group wrote a letter to council asking for the fees to be waived completely. And so I guess we got a couple of things on the table. One is if you deny the request, then the direction is that the fees are they pay the fees. There is no negotiation. So that's the motion. And secondly is there is a cost to the facility. So any amount less than the fees that wouldn't be negotiated if it's 0 is a significant loss. Somewhere in there, maybe a number that covers the city's costs, but just being careful with if council had decided to fund the full $15,000 of that request, then we'd have to have some way of authorizing, or if council would like us to negotiate, authorizing a net loss to the overall budget of Western Financial Place due to the loss of this revenue. So there's a lot of conversations in between. So if under the policy where we do negotiate when it comes to events, the director will ensure that the costs are covered, maybe not make a lot of profit, but the costs are covered. And so in this case, by them asking for it to be free, it is an impact on the overall operation because it doesn't cover the costs for that service. So I just wanted to just put those things out there. So thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you. So yeah, the motion we have on the table, just to make sure I'm on the right page, is to decline the request to donate the rental fees, correct? That's option number 1, right? And so I'm not a lawyer, but to me, just because if this motion is approved by council, to me, that does not negate what's in the bylaw. Apparently, it says in the bylaw that our director may negotiate rental fees lower than those fees. So I'm just saying that as per bylaw, our director has that ability, and I would support those conversations to happen in whatever way the director sees fit. So just because we're passing, if this motion gets approved, it doesn't change what's in our bylaw. What's in our bylaw is still there.
Go to Councilor Graham, then Councilor Popoff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess one thing I'm looking at here and is the request wasn't written well. Essentially, what I understand from talking to the proponent, because I see him at his gym every morning, is they're looking for a partnership with Strongman. And I'm like, well, your letter doesn't say that. So you should have wrote a letter asking for a partnership with Strongman with the city on building this event. And then what that maybe allows is our director of recreation to maybe look at a co-pro. Maybe we look at a bit of a cost recovery where we're involved, but once we've got our money back, the Strongman organization could get the money to continue to build the event. And so I almost wish we could have a redo on this, so it comes out the way that they were wanting it to, rather than through the Spirit of the Rockies organization, because Spirit of the Rockies has this lock on all the facilities, so you have to go through them if you're doing it on that weekend. So I think there's just a little bit of clarity needed around, was this money going to Spirit of the Rockies? If they make money, does it go to support Strongman? Are they actually wanting the city to maybe partner with Strongman, where we're a sponsor of it, where we have where it got some skin in the game with soft costs of the arena? So those are the kind of the questions that I'm putting out there, because I think there's maybe a bit more to the discussion than just a straight up. I guess it's different than when Smash Mouth played with the previous as the Sam Seal Society. So that's where I talked to the proponent. I said it was a very poorly written letter because it didn't explain what you were actually wanting. So that's they're in no rush for an answer. Like tonight, I don't know if council would entertain them having a better written letter, or if we just want to deal with it tonight. I'm just putting that out there.
Councilor Popoff, then Councilor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sometimes communications can be the hindrance, not the success. I agree with Councilor Graham. So yes, they are looking for just the hard costs for Western Financial Place for those days surrounding the date. And I think the letter, though Councilor Graham's correct, could have been worded better. They're looking for some political support for how we want to see Spirit of the Rockies continue to thrive and expand and be a great community event. So I'm okay with voting against option 1, going to option 2, or deferring it as Councilor Graham's suggesting. We need to thank Spirit of the Rockies and all the other partners that make up Spirit of the Rockies event, and how can the city enable this to continue to be a successful and growing event. I don't think the private entity that's promoting the Strongman is they're going to get some marketing out of it, but I understand there's no profit sharing that the corporation's getting. It goes into an account that will be for future Strongman events. And so I'm in favor of it. And because they wrote the letter to council, I'm okay with us declining option 1 and approving option 2.
Thank you, Councilor Stetsky, then Councilor Peabody.
Thank you. I had thought that we had refused the request and told them they had to pay the hard costs. But if we vote in favor of number 1, which I'm inclined to do, and if Councilor Graham's understanding is correct, that wouldn't preclude them coming back and asking for a grant from council contingency to support their work, would it? This just says we're not going to give them the Western Financial Place for free.
Thank you. Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I feel like we're making a decision on something that we don't have all the background for. In my perspective, going into this, is we already gave Spirit of the Rockies, what, $22,000? I can't remember, with our grants to nonprofits. And then it's looking at this as another request for another $16,000 on top of that, because there is a cost to the taxpayers to provide this service that they're asking for. And it's substantial. It's not just small. And then hearing Councillor Ray's description of, there is a bylaw to deal with this. And I have to say, I agree with you. It's not a perspective I thought of going into this conversation, but I'm glad you brought it up. So yeah, I'm in favor of voting for option 1 with the idea that our Director of Leisure Services will negotiate with the promoter, and hopefully we come to an option that does work for both parties.
If I could, certainly, I do agree with Councillor Ray. What's our role here? Role as councillors, we're here for governance, okay? And governance, we're guided by bylaws and policies. That's how we should be making our decisions, based on bylaws and policies. Unless we're going to go make a bylaw change, want to change the bylaw, and a one-off on these types of things is very dangerous. You got to do that. So really, if that's what the bylaw says, you know what? It's a slippery slope going down and one-offs contrary to a bylaw. That's why they're there. Now, so I think subsequent to that, so even if we did go with option 1, the bylaw states that Trevor has the authority to negotiate. So he negotiates it, and if it's a preferred rate because there's an interest to the city going forward as a partnership or whatever, he can negotiate whatever he wants. And you know what? Quite frankly, that part of the negotiation shouldn't be on us. If he's delegated that authority in the bylaw, we should be leaving that with him, and that delegated authority to act upon that. So see you virtual, and then we'll go around again.
So I just thought I'd kind of go further to what you just said and, back to what I said with Councillor Ray. So the administration sort of process of correspondence to council is a pure relationship between council and their constituents. So we as administration don't get involved in the middle of that. Council receives correspondence as it's written. And so we don't interfere with the letters. We don't talk to people and say, well, maybe you should rewrite your letter, or don't write that letter, or anything else. That relationship has to be absolute, that the letter comes to council as it's written. Then council can decide how to refer it back. And in this one, you needed more information. And that's why then we were able to write a report that included a bit more information that helped the discussion tonight. So I just want you to be aware that all letters you get, we're not interfering. And so some of the discussion that's happening now is exactly how it should play out. So thank you for that. But the ask was, council, can we have this? And so that was the question you got. And so it's what you give back to us is how we work through it.
Okay. I've got Councillor Graham, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Popoff.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess my question then back would be that if this came forward, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the bylaw part of it. So if they had written and asked if you wanted to co-pro it, or if you wanted to be involved as a sponsor, that wouldn't even come to council, because you have the authority to make that decision. So if they presented this to you and said, hey, Trevor, would the city be interested at maybe doing 75-25 with us, or and being a sponsor of Strongman, you have the authority to make that decision. What's the, do you have a budget threshold? Like, can you commit 12,000? Can you commit 100,000? I'm just trying to wrap my head around, so this stuff doesn't have to come to our desk then.
Mayor Price, through to Councillor Graham. So yes, that does sit on my desk, and there is no direct budget line for that item. There is a special events budget, which is nowhere near the numbers you're talking, but yeah, so that is a possibility. In that if the proposal, working through this particular event, if the proposal, they didn't like it, they could then come to council. But yeah, I could definitely do a co-pro with the city of sorts.
Councillor Stetsky?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to clarify that I was not suggesting that Spirit of the Rockies could come back with another grant request, but this seems to be all about strongman. So maybe they want to come back with some kind of a grant request from our contingency.
Thank you. Councillor Popov?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So Trevor, Western Financial Place is vacant during that whole period of time, so there is no offset of revenues that would be happening at the Western Financial during that period?
Mayor Price through Councillor Popoff. That is correct. There's no expected revenues, but there would be additional costs that would not be covered by traditional hard costs as lined in the letter request from Spirit of the Rockies
Right, so
Festival.
they're asking just for the hard costs, and they would pay the quote, the soft costs. So if it's just the hard costs that we would be approving them for, what is that burden to the taxpayer?
Actually,
that was a question raised. That's why I'm just asking.
Yeah, Mayor Price, City Councilor Paul, you've got it backwards. They're asking to pay only the hard costs. They're asking for the soft costs to be waived. So the soft costs are that approximately $15,700. And so,
so
the hard costs are around $10,000. But it's all dependent on ticket sales and patron numbers.
So the soft costs then are staff time, among other things.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm hearing two different things, Mr. Mayor. I'm hearing the mayor saying we just go with option one, we decline it, and then it's under Trevor's purview to make his own decisions. He's saying he doesn't have a budget line item for this, so that might be a challenge. And I'm hearing our CIO saying, no, the letter came to council. If we defeat it, then it's done. Did I get that right? So I'm hearing two different outcomes if we approve option one.
Councillor Popoff, I guess what that would limit is, so what council would say is that absolutely no cost is not on the table. So as long as the director negotiates something above that number, it would be onside. Yeah.
So then for clarity, if we approve option one, that still gives Trevor the opportunity to go back and negotiate.
No.
If
we can still go back. We're not doing it free. If we choose option one, they're not getting it free. Yeah. Right. They can go back with Trevor and negotiate any price that Trevor feels,
so
deemed to be responsible.
So option one enables Trevor to go back and negotiate, and it's not for free.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Ray, one more time.
Just briefly, I think this has been a great governance discussion and a good example of nose in, fingers out. So we've had our nose in. Now we're going to take our fingers out, and we're going to, I hope, if we approve this motion, we're going to hand the ball to Trevor.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, anything further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That was a good discussion. Really good discussion.
Can we, in the future, if there's a red flag about a correspondence that's coming to council, can staff kind of flag something in advance so we don't have to have this merry-go-round of great debates?
So Councillor Popoff through the mayor, I guess this comes along like it depends on the council correspondence system that we'd like to have. And so I've worked in different municipalities where the pendulum has gone from one side to the other. So one is a very heavy involvement by administration on the correspondence and what you see and how you see it. And then the kickback from the community and some council members become the relationship between council and the public is filtered through administration. And we as an administration are coloring your relationship with the citizens. So my style, and this is kind of reflective of my style, I guess, is that I prefer to see the letters come to council in their pure form. And we as administration don't say, no, don't write that letter, or you should change this letter. The only thing that I'll ever say to a letter writer is, if you're making an ask of council, make sure your ask is very clear, because you've written a nice story, but you're not asking your question. But otherwise, we typically have that come straight through. And then it's up to council to decide, do you refer to staff for more information, which you did here, which then you get more information, and then you can do that. At the meeting, like, we know if there's like red flags or anything, and then all you have to do is raise that back. But I certainly want to create an atmosphere where council has direct relationship with the public without administration being involved whatsoever. But we are here when you see the letter to have that interaction here either at that night or just refer it to us to do more research. absolutely no problem with that. And then bringing it back for a decision later, rather than trying to make a decision at the table that night. So I just want you to,
Sure, thank you.
that's kind of my style, unless council would like to change that. I've worked in all different environments, and so I've just found that to be probably the best. It does come up with these odd, awkward moments, but it does take away some of the worse
Sure,
comments. I've
thanks,
had.
Mark. So I guess could have been option one, council make a decision, yes or no. Option two, refer it to, well, no, but change the option 1 and 2 wording, so it's not approve or decline, but option 1, refer it to Trevor, who has the authority, as we found out is his authority, or option 2, council bypass that and make a decision. Might have been a different way of wording it.
Councillor Ray, do you have a comment?
One final comment, just to say, along those same lines, like, and maybe that's a question for us to be aware of as well. Is there an existing policy or bylaw that touches on this issue? So I think it's great, and I would like us to continue with our approach to correspondence. I think that's excellent. It's just kind of that intermediary step to identify slightly earlier. Do we have an existing bylaw or policy that matches? That's all I'm asking, because as I say, I unfortunately cannot remember where we have applicable bylaws or policies. So that's all I'm asking for, is that intermediary step or a little earlier. It's along those same lines that we may not need a motion from council. It might be FYI, this is covered by a bylaw. Trevor's going to take it, and away we go.
Beautiful. Good. Last item of business is yours again, Trevor, is from Recreation and Culture regarding special events bookings inside Western Financial Place. Can you give us an overview of it, please, Trevor?
In October, when we were in the midst of our Memorial Arena roof structure issues, council made a decision to stop seeking new opportunities within Western Financial Place. And now that we have the repair completion of Memorial on the horizon, I'm looking for approval to start seeking new event opportunities inside Western Financial Place.
Thank you. Can I get a motion that council directs staff to pursue rental requests for special event opportunities inside Western Financial Place? Mover, please. Councillor Blissett, Councillor Peabody, discussion. I thought you were Arnold Horshack there.
Oh, no, here, Your Worship. I'd just like to say, I want to see more rock and roll in Western Financial Place as soon as possible. So I'm very happy that you've brought this forward.
Anybody further? Yeah, and I understand that they're ahead of schedule on the memorial as well. So yeah, it's all good news. So great job over there, guys. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Rock and roll. Moving on to admin updates. We have one admin update on the agenda from Public Works regarding automated garbage collection. Caitlin Pocha, are you online to give us a little bit of an update on this?
Hi, yes. So a quick update about the automated garbage collection program. So we are scheduled to begin collection in our automated trucks on June 3rd of 2024. We just finished our cart procurement, and carts will be rolled out to all residents in May. We will be providing all residents with one 240-liter cart, so that's the exact same size as the recycling carts. We do have the opportunity for residents who find that cart to be too large to request a 120-liter collection bin. So those requests we're asking to be submitted by March 14th, and they can be done through contacting the city or through our 311. We're just getting it online through that app, so that should be available this week. And we'll also have the information kit similar to the recycling program for residents on cart placement and with the rest of the collection schedule.
Thanks, Caitlin. Council, any comments, questions? Well, thanks, Caitlin, and to all staff. I'm really impressed how quickly this was rolled out. Certainly the recycle and then this coming right in behind it. So I think we we were ahead of our expectations when we were talking about this a couple of years ago. So very well done. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So Caitlin, good news. Thank you for getting this up and running. What if come March 13th, the homeowner doesn't know what they don't know and find out later on when they get the big blue bin that it's not manageable? How do we accommodate them when they say after the fact, I didn't know what I didn't know at the beginning beforehand, and now I'm finding it's too unruly for me to maneuver this bigger bin? Do we accommodate them at that point?
Yeah, so we did have this identified from feedback from the recycling program. So there was only a handful of residents who found those carts too cumbersome, typically the elder or people with mobility challenges. So that's why we are providing that, but we just need that information for cart requests to do the order. So if they do need a smaller bin later, they can request it, as I will be ordering extras, just not a significant number of extra 120 liter carts.
Excellent, thank you. So we can accommodate those that realize after the fact. Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Have a good night. Moving on to correspondence. The first item of correspondence is from Christine Melfair, President of Cranbrook Skating Club, dated January 25th, 2023, regarding a request for facility ice time donation for Cranbrook Skating Club's Spring Showcase.
Refer to Trevor.
Staff have noted that the request would cost a total of $343.80 plus GST. Thinking that must have come from finance, to cover the cost of 3 hours to rent the ice. Discussion, you received the information or a motion? They're looking for donated ice time, and we've done it in the past. They have their annual skating thing, and we've done that out of council contingency in the past. So yes, Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't think our contingency policy applies because they know this well in advance. It's not some, oh my God, something came up, I need some contingency money. They know this well in advance. Having said that, there are the READY grants that are coming up, and they can go through that process, I think, and they qualify for the READY grant application. So I'd encourage that. And secondly, because this isn't just a Cranbrook event, this is a regional event, they should also be applying to the regional district for grant monies, because Cranbrook does contribute to the regional district pot. So those would be my comments, and they do not apply, they don't comply with the contingency fund.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering if we have our letter from last year that we wrote to the skating club. I could be wrong, but my recollection regarding the council contingency fund was that it was a sort of a one-time approval, and then that we referred them to apply to our city nonprofit grant program. But maybe I'm mistaken in my recollection. So just wondering if we have that letter handy.
Mayor Price,
Sorry.
Councillor Ray. Yeah, I happen to have that letter here with me. It was dated December 7th, 2022, which I believe was the last request from the Figure Skating Club. And it does exactly speak to that council's approved the request for this year, but would suggest you apply to other opportunities in the future.
Okay. Councillor Blissett, then Councillor Stetsky.
I agree with that and what was said in the letter. The only thing I would say is that the Figure Skating Club had to deal with a lot this fall because of Memorial Arena. They weren't able to get, access their equipment for a long time. We certainly, being a recreational user of our arenas, caused a lot of stress for this group as well as others in the fall. So I'm wondering that we couldn't just let it go this year, take the 300 and change out of council contingency and move on, but also just reinforce the previous letter so that it doesn't happen again. So I would think that's a reasonable way to approach it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Blissett, and I just checked, and applications for the READY grants close on February 29th. So that's pretty tight for them to get their application in.
Were there? So I got a comment on this. I would agree, you know, certainly the Cranbrook Skating Club, they've been no burden in the 50 years I've been around and, you know, interactive and through minor hockey, they've been zero burden on really on the community and on the city. This is pretty minor. We give more than this away without even having a discussion. I would agree that we are putting that last sentence on all of our correspondence now when it's going back when we're asked for support and funding. You know, we had a discussion, you know, about where we're going in budgeting over time. We've had these discussions in the past during our last budget. We're going to look at our budgeting process and whatnot. And, you know, maybe it's time that, you know, through the budgeting process, we no longer, we have a policy statement where we're going to actually say we're no longer in this business or our limitations are here with maximums, whatever, and then maybe alleviate this stuff too. Because we're getting more and more all the time, you know, coming through. And, you know, it's interesting. Councillor Ray and I had a really good discussion on some of this stuff yesterday. We started going through some of the funding requests that we've been getting. I'm telling you, they're adding up. And, you know, when we're up in the 8% tile, you know, of tax increases, you know, it all adds up, you know, and yeah, maybe it's time we have to have a look at that. And because we've looked at a number of, we spoke about a number of different organizations that come to us. They're coming through to us every year with the standard amount, and we send that back. And I can almost bet you they have got their go-to list and they're not expanding on that. And, you know, quite frankly, I was part of Cranbrook Minor Hockey. I managed the boxing club. I've been involved with some of these organizations that do go to the public. And, you know, I have come before city councils in the past. You develop that spreadsheet and you've got it. And then, you know what, when you're done, it's there for the next guy. So the first guy that develops that spreadsheet does a lot of work, right? And I think that, you know, what happens is they get pretty comfortable sometimes just going, okay, here's my list. So I agree. It's time for them to take serious consideration, you know, in other sources. But I think for this one, I'm really fine with this, where we could make a motion and have it come out of council contingency. Okay, I'll make a motion then. The council received the correspondence from Christine Malfair, President, Cranbrook Skating Club, dated January 25th, 2023, regarding request for a facility ice time donation for Cranbrook Skating Club Spring Showcase, and further that the council fund the request amount of $343.80. Source of funds council contingency, and further that staff notify the Cranbrook Skating Club to apply for funding through the municipal grant program in future years. Mover, please, Councillor Blissett and Councillor Ray. Discussion, Councillor Popoff.
Thank you. Can you also add on, also apply to the regional district? Because they are the collective and we're part of a big portion of that funding. So instead of coming directly to city, we already are a big funder through the regional district. So to have them apply through the regional district might be another recommendation.
I think that, you know, what we've got here, there, and then we have other agencies, et cetera. So I think that our current last liner kind of would cover that, Councillor Popoff. So thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next item of correspondence is from Darren Duma, 2024 Tournament Host Chair, President, WCBGA Blind Golf BC, dated January 29th, 2024, regarding a request for financial support for the Western Canadian Blind Golf Championship. I've got a potential motion here, so I'll put it out for discussion whether you want to receive it for information or the motion. For information? Receive for information. You want to read the motion? No? Yeah. The council received the correspondence from Darren Duma, 2024 tournament host chair, President, WCBGA Blind Golf BC, dated January 29th, 2024, regarding request for financial support for Western Canadian Blind Golf Championship, and further, that council provides 1,000 in support source of funds council contingency, and further, that staff notify the Western Canadian Blind Golf Association to apply for funding through the municipal grant program in future years. Mover. Councillor Stetsky, seconder. No seconder. We'll file it for correspondence. Councillor Stetsky.
So I was wondering whether Cranbrook Tourism has a grant fund or maybe should consider a grant fund going forward to help support things like this. They do get quite a bit of money every year. I'm not sure if they're spending all of it. Councillor Popoff, perhaps as the liaison, can speak to that, but I would think something like this could and should be of interest to organizations like Cranbrook Tourism.
Thank you. Good suggestion, Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stetsky. The bulk of the money received is for branding and marketing, but if there is an event happening in and around Cranbrook, Cranbrook Tourism can participate if it's going to bring in external economic development, revenue, tourism revenue into our community. So it hasn't really been used much by Cranbrook Tourism, if at all, but I understand that that's doable. Mr. Mayor, there's also way other avenues for this. It's going well in advance. They can apply through, other non-for-profit service clubs and others, and they can also apply the regional district because this is a broader piece. So other ways of doing it.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Stetsky.
Just a quick comment. I had the pleasure of opening the blind golf tournament in Kimberley a number of years ago, and it is truly, truly an incredible event. Watching what these people who are at various stages of blindness are able to achieve with a golf ball far exceeds what I can do being fully sighted. Quite frankly, it's amazing. So encourage people to get out and be there and watch it.
Thank you. Next up, correspondence from Glenda Montgomery, dated February 5th, 2024, regarding concerns regarding the lack of recesses of curbs at designated handicap parking zones. Staff have noted this letter was forwarded to the city's interim Accessibility, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for evaluation consideration. So it is being looked at this time. So we'll file this for information at this point in time. Thank you. Next item of correspondence is from Diane Stone, dated, February 5th, 2024, regarding a tower installation project. I think staff have read the letter. We'll file this for information. Thank you. Last item of correspondence is from Helen Hanna and Guy Thompson, Cranbrook Pro Rodeo Committee. Received February 12th, 2024, regarding a request for financial sponsorship for the Cranbrook Pro Rodeo. Staff noted council was a bronze buckle sponsor for 1,000 in 2022. Discussion? Councillor Bassett?
I would like to move that we continue with our, similar to what we did in the past, and go for a bronze buckle sponsorship of this event. From the money coming from council contingency. Sorry, I forgot that part B.
Council contingency? Yeah. Okay, so the motion is that council receive the correspondence from Helen Hanna and Guy Thompson. Cranbrook Pro Rodeo Committee received February 12th, 2024, regarding a request for financial sponsorship for the Cranbrook Pro Rodeo. And further, the council approved the request as a bronze buckle sponsor in the amount of 1,000 Source of funds, council contingency. And further, the staff notify Cranbrook Pro Rodeo to apply for funding through the municipal grant program in future years. Seconder on that, please. That was your motion. Seconder, Councillor Graham. Further discussion, Councillor Popoff.
Well, again, this is contrary to our policy. Policy, I believe, and Marnie, correct me if I'm wrong, is if something comes up unexpected and there's no way for that organization to do other fundraising and everything else, and they come and ask us for council contingency, which means it's a bit of an urgent matter and they were caught off guard. I don't know if I got that right, but I think that's pretty much the gist. This is clearly does not qualify for that, so I would suggest we're outside of our, we're making a motion that's not consistent with our policy. And furthermore, I would suggest, because this is a regional thing, repeat record, have them apply to the regional district. So, but we are outside of our policy on this because this is not an, oh, I didn't know this came up. Now we got that we're hosting an event in Cranbrook in a month from now. This is an annual event, so it doesn't comply with our policy.
Could I ask staff to clarify that this is outside of our current policy, contrary to our current policy?
Sure, Councillor Popoff through Mayor Price. The council contingency policy says that council at its discretion in an open public meeting, individual awards are capped at $500 unless of an exceptional nature. Individual awards are capped at 10% of overall direct funding required. Individual awards may only be provided to city residents or groups whose membership is primarily made up of city residents or taxpayers, and individual awards may only be provided to individuals or groups to support initiatives which council deemed to be apolitical in nature.
Thank you. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you. I think one other thing we have to be careful of here is why are we saying yes to a rodeo, but then saying no to the blind golf tournament? But the blind golf tournament is at St. Eugene, which is somewhat local too. Okay.
You said no to the golf. Yeah. Councillor Stetsky.
So just for clarification, you said a maximum of $500. So do we need to change the motion to 500? I don't know what kind of buckle you get.
Marnie, can I get you to read that part about the city resident taxpayer, whatever it was there?
Sure. Okay. Individual awards may only be provided to city residents or groups whose membership is primarily made up of city residents or taxpayers, and individual awards may only be provided to individuals or groups to support initiatives which council deemed to be apolitical in nature.
Councillor Ray, then back to Councillor Popoff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great event. So however we vote on this motion does not reflect, whether or not how we feel about this particular event. It's a great event and tons of volunteer time that goes into organizing it. From my perspective, I feel like it would be more appropriate in terms of funding to look at other sources, maybe conversations with Cranbrook Tourism. I don't know if there's an economic development component that they should be talking to our economic development staff person. Again, this is a nonprofit event, so, and I know that doesn't help for this year, but for future years, be thinking several months in advance and applying for grant funding. For myself, I think in terms of our policy, I think it doesn't fit. I wonder if there's some in-kind support that the city might be able to provide. Could we throw it up on a billboard? Could we promote it a bit on social media? Like, they're looking partly to see that we value their event and value the people they're bringing to our community. But for myself, I do feel that this request is outside of our policy.
Thank you for that. Anybody further? Councillor Popoff.
Sorry, and Marnie, the one piece that was also in the policy says that to allocate financial support to initiatives of municipal interest that cannot be reasonably anticipated during the normal budgeting process. Clearly, this is an annual event. It's within their normal budgeting processes. The contingency, again, I state, does not apply.
Thank you for that, Councillor Popoff. Councillor Brissette.
Thank you. So what they've asked is for us to be a sponsor. This is about being on their program, saying that Cranbrook is a sponsor. It's like when other groups come to us and then we get credit for it. So I understand maybe we're not up to bronze buckle sponsorship, but certainly we could be at a partner sponsorship level, and then we're included on the program. That's what they're asking for. And it's not the same as a grant. It's part of their promotional material. So I'm not sure, it's a bit gray on the policy. I would appreciate in future if when we get these requests, that maybe that policy could be referred to in our staff, in our staff notes here, or whatever, council notes, just to help us out a little bit on this, because this always takes so much time in our meetings and it drives me nuts.
Councillor Graham, Councillor Peabody, then back to Councillor Ray.
I love how we're sharpening the pencil on this, which is great. What essentially what this is advertising.
Yes.
So, Trevor, no, but like this should go into advertising, and whether council or not council
the budget.
decides,
Yes.
it goes into an advertising thing. No different than like the figure skating is different because they're asking for it's a nice use thing, but this is just a standard advertising request. Does the city want to be involved in the rodeo? Do you want your bronze buckle? And we don't make those I don't know who's in charge of our advertising, but it should land on their desk for this, because this is not a grant. They're not looking for a grant. They're just saying, hey, do you want to be a sponsor and advertise? So I think that needs to be flushed out a bit too. Like the blind golf one is again looking for sponsorship, advertising. So I think that's just something to look at.
So, yeah, so considering that, and I totally agree with you, it is advertising. We do have provision for advertising in our budget, and would we have something in our economic development budget that would cover something like that, advertising or profiling Cranbrook? Because that's, in a sense, marketing Cranbrook. And all we need to do is then change the name from council contingency to whatever. Councillor Ray?
I'm wondering if we could call the question and vote on this motion, and then if it's an operational advertising issue, then that's over to
Bingo.
operations.
Yeah, it's well within the department's head's wheelhouse to authorize $1,000 expenditure. So everybody see the light here? We'll vote it down and then just let it go right back to. No, I don't know if we can do that. Let's send it back. Seal Fritchell.
Council, just, I guess I'll just go back to like with council correspondence. So, there's nothing wrong with these things as the letters come in, just to refer to staff like you did with the one with the request for Spirit of the Rockies. Like if a correspondence item comes in and you'd like some information, what's our policy, what's this, what's that, just refer it to staff and we will come back and give you that information, what's on our policy, what staff recommend. We can do that with a simple referral. I just want to caution council that we do provide some notes with the correspondence that comes in, but for us to anticipate all the possible directions you may go with, we might spend a bunch of time preparing for you to go one way and then council simply receives it. It's not efficient. If there is nothing wrong with council just saying, refer to staff for more information and we'll come back at the next meeting with a little bit more information. We can tell you what the policies are, what the impacts are, all these other things like previous correspondence and all that stuff. We can have that all prepared. No problem. So just, like as you've heard tonight, where we do have some notes that are relevant for council to understand, but a lot of these, there's no requirement for a decision to be made tonight. When they are, we will step it up and play that a little differently if there's a crush. But I just want to make sure that we're not kind of tripping around.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of referring it to staff. Councillor Stats, did you have a comment?
No, I was going to say that 12.3 is on my agenda and we've skipped over that just so we don't miss it.
So yeah, I could
To deal with this, but maybe we can come back to that.
She said.
Did they?
It's gone to
All right. I guess it's something.
Yeah, it's referred to the EDI.
Oh. Yes. Okay, we're good.
He might be talking about the previous 12.3.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Defeat the motion, and we'll refer this to staff. Thank you very much. Thanks. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, so Councillor Peabody just informed me that 12.3 was removed from our agenda. So I didn't have an
No.
updated agenda.
Well,
No, 12.3 was correspondence
You
from
don't have the updated version.
Cranbrook Minor Ball Association Co-op grant. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Still
Okay.
showing on my agenda.
What did I miss? Did I miss something here? That was the last one, right? Thank you. Yeah. Oh, yes, because I'd seen that one earlier. Okay. Well, okay, that brings us now to Mayor and Council's reports. Let's start with Councillor Graham tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two things. One question, which I don't know, I don't expect an answer tonight, but just wondering the status of the bylaw for the e-scooters. I know I emailed Mark earlier in the week, so I'm not sure if he has that ready or not, but.
So the e-scooter program, currently e-scooters are not allowed in BC unless they are part of a pilot project as approved by provincial legislation. So Councillor Graham through council raised that some time ago and Cranbrook applied, and we were successful in having Cranbrook included in the provincial legislation. So now comes what's next. And so what staff have been looking at is how do you operate that program in Cranbrook? So what most municipalities do is basically like put out an RFP and administer an e-scooter program. And the staff capacity to do that is somewhat limited for us to develop and drive an e-scooter program. So what we're looking at is there a way that by allowing the opportunity that the private sector can do it without us administering it in some way, shape, or form, and seeing if some municipalities do it that way. But by and large, it seems like municipalities that take it on are in the driver's seat of actually running the program. So it looks like there's one in Kelowna that might work for us that is more of a, it's allowed, but you need to do it. And there's some administrative fees that are associated with it that help ensure that the private sector operators are creating the administration that needs to go back to the province that's required under this program. So that's the sticking point, is how do you get the private operator to do this administrative work? So there's a permit provision thing. So we're looking at that as a way to avoid us having to design, develop, and deliver an e-scooter program under the city of Cranbrook's banner, because we simply don't have the staff capacity for that. So that's where that's at right now.
So, so that, is it going to happen this year, or are we not, like, great, but where's, like, are we going to reach out to private sector? Are we doing anything like that?
What I could do is say we'll provide an admin update on that to you.
Perfect. And then, yeah, just the other thing, I was at the UBCM Housing Forum last week. I was there for the first few days for that, and then at UBCM executive meeting after the fact. The Housing Forum was well attended, I think, for the short notice, both in person and virtually. And there was a lot of questions answered, and it was really shaped to be an information session so local governments can understand where the province is heading. The legislation's in place, so it's not necessarily there to complain about it, but also to be able to hear some of the challenges and hurdles that are faced along the way. And one of the key things that I noticed is that nothing that was brought up touches on affordability. It's just talking about bulk stock and the feeling that if we build 10,000 houses, it'll drive the prices down because there's more of them. versus, so they're using just kind of the availability, build it, and then it should bring the prices down. So there was a bit of a thing there that, nothing really touches on affordability. And there was a wide view in the room, especially in Metro, where some Metro communities have done a really good job on planning and density planning. And they feel like they've been punished by the province for the few of the others that haven't. Talking with one of the panel presentations was the mayor of Burnaby, and he's talking about like they've built corridors for density. Now density is now becoming, to use Councillor Stetsky's word, sprawl. So now it's sprawl density because it can be, anywhere in your city where a fourplex can pop up. So there are these little anomalies that they're seeing in Metro, and a lot of the rural communities are in this very similar positions that Cranbrook is in. Is great, but we don't have the infrastructure to support big density. Like if every house all of a sudden had a carriage house in a completed neighborhood, do we have the sewer capacity and water capacity in that neighborhood to service 15 lots? And a lot of them are in that phase. So they're just kind of grappling with that with the province. And then the other part is meeting the requirements with housing needs assessment, which we have done. But when you're coming into OCP and the requirements around planning, every municipality needs to do this. And so the consultants that are needed for the job, there's no capacity. Capacity is going to be scarce. So I kind of mentioned to Director Gay was there, and also to the mayor when we were chatting last week, that maybe this is some of the areas where the regional district and the regional planning could come in and work with municipalities on some of these. So it's like it's a regional versus us all having, Cranbrook and Kimberley and Sparwood and Fernie all having to do all this duplication. Maybe it can be done more at a regional level and provide some of that, some of the services that we are paying for in planning, and maybe they only have to hire one more staff compared to everybody having to hire maybe another staff member and more consultants. So I just kind of pitched that as an idea, but overall was a great conference, and I think we'll see some things starting to move.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First off, Friday night, I attended the Bucks game, the rink, and huge amount of energy in that arena because there was 2,685 paid attendance. The arena was back to the glory days, and the energy and the spirit in there was just incredible. So we need more Pink the Rink days. Victoria, I know we had competing priorities with funding, and we're no longer doing Victoria in the time being, but the asphalt, it's we might as well put gravel down. It's getting that bad. So I'm wondering, and I don't need to know now, but is there any sort of short-term patching, significant patching of Victoria that we can do to just kind of bring it up to some sort of minimum standard? So I'll leave that with staff. And secondly, I'm a regular driver by at Encore there on 4th Street North and Kootenay. We have a left turn lanes and straight through lanes all the way around, and that's a narrow intersection. Do we, just because we can, do we really need left turn lanes and straight through lanes in that intersection? Does it have that much use? And I use as an example the next block up at Days Inn. There's no left and straight through. It's just, I mean, some people will merge over to the side and sneak a right turn every once in a while, but we're not doing it for the one that was been existing forever. Why are we squeezing it in for this one? And frankly, from a traffic perspective, do we really need it? So just some thoughts.
I guess that's a question for our engineering staff. They can get back to us on that. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. On February 13th, I attended the open house for the NWP coal project that's proposed for the Elk Valley. So it's a new coal development, looking at 15 years of production of metallurgical coal, about 250 to 300 jobs for construction, and then the same once they're into production. And I see, so of course that process is ongoing and is going to take some time still. Sparwood Fish and Game have come out and Wild Site in opposition of that project. So just a consideration for our community because we know how many people in Cranbrook work in the Elk Valley in coal out there. On the same day, also on the 13th, I attended the Tunaha Nation Council open house, and it was another great open house with some delicious fry bread and an excellent tour of the building. And Daphne Hayden was on the same tour as I was, a longtime retired Cranbrook teacher, and actually taught in that building in 62, 63. And the tour guide was pretty pleased to have her on that tour. And she talked about what her classroom was like then. So that was great. On the 21st, I attended along with other members of council our meet and greet with the Japanese students from the college. So I hope their 3 weeks here in Cranbrook are going well. On the weekend, I was pleased to attend the Pie Social at the Anglican Church and just want to thank them once again for being the warming center when we hit our cold temperatures and for working with anchors on that. That's great. And this week on the 29th, the Tunaha Nation Council is having their business showcase from 1 to 4 p.m. And I would encourage people to check that out.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. Well, for me, it's been all curling all the time. We started off 2 weekends ago with the Ladies Bondsville Shades of Green. There were 72 curlers competed in that event over that weekend, the Family Day weekend, and then followed up by the BC Masters Curling Championships, which were held in our rink last week. And the final was on Sunday. We had a Cranbrook team in the final, ladies, but it went right down to the last end and went to the other team. So, but great curling, and we have a wonderful facility. The ice makers do a phenomenal job. Those events we had a few years ago when we had the Grand Slam here and the provincial championship, what happened was our local ice people learned from the big guys, and it's really improved the ice quality in Cranbrook. And then that's also been transferred to Kimberley and to other local arenas. So anyways, great curling events here in town. And of course, there was the Scotties all last week too. So this is my first night not watching curling, but I'll be okay because the Briar starts on Friday. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, certainly I was in attendance over there over the weekend, and these are pretty high level curlers. And boy, that was one of the common themes. Cranbrook has great ice, and Cranbrook has a great reputation for having some of the best ice in Western Canada. So yeah, thank you. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been getting some questions about the state of the skate park expansion. I know that was something that we believe we voted on and approved. I think we're waiting for funding sources. I know there was a survey done to see what we wanted for the skate park. Just wondering if we can get a report back on that for the next council meeting, if that's possible.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Several good news items. One of the roles of the CAO is to keep us informed on a number of different topics. And one of the ones that struck me was the one he sent concerning Canada's housing advocate, Marie-Josie Houle. I'll just read this because I think it's important. She did a report that calls on the federal government to create a national encampments response plan that recognizes Canada's human rights obligations and commits resources to end chronic homelessness, and with the plan, from her perspective, due by August 31st of this year. Went on to say that Canada needs more non-market housing for low and moderate income groups. Currently, only 4% of rentals in Canada are non-market. So it's good to see that there's potentially going to be a national approach to an issue that, of course, affects Cranbrook, but it basically affects every community across the country, hopefully by August 31st. I had the pleasure this last week on Thursday, I attended Ballet Jorgen's Anne of Green Gables, which was an amazing performance, both from perspective of dance and also from character acting. I guess you really got the whole story by watching the dancers. And they also included local dancers from various dance schools here in Cranbrook as part the performance, which was great. Friday, as Councillor Popoff mentioned, was the Bucks game, Pink the Rink. I forgot to wear my pink jersey that night, so I'm making up for it. And of course, that's anti-bullying. And the reason there were 2,700 is that almost all the elementary schools in Cranbrook were represented there, and the energy was great. It was just like going back to the old days with all those students there. And of course, very important messaging around bullying and preventing bullying. And on Saturday, I attended the Symphony of the Kootenays, and again, one of our locals, Caitlin McCaughey, was featured as one of the performers at it. And it's just so great that we get this really, really high-level entertainment performances here in Cranbrook that incorporates our local citizens as part of the performances as well. And I'll just mention that tickets have now gone on sale for, it's going to be called Harmony Rising, Sunday, July 7th, out at St. Eugene. It'll be the Symphony of the Kootenays combined with the Tunaha Numa Kakan drummers will be part of the performance, and tickets are on sale now. So that's Sunday, July 7th. It's going to be an amazing outdoor performance at St. Eugene.
Thank you very much. And I have nothing to report tonight. With that, I'll get a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Graham and Councillor Blissett, all in favor? Opposed?